welcome to Hotelier's Guide to Mobile-Friendly Websites. Before we jump into the discussion, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to write them in the chat and we'll try to make it a bit interactive. So the reason why you're joining here is you want to know how to make your website mobile-friendly, easier way to compete with the OTAs, and we'll share some tips and tricks as well. And I'll like to start by introducing the speakers. Luke, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, thanks, Soledad. So my name is Luke. I'm a Director of Product here at Hotelchamp. I'm working to improve the product for our customers and effectively get direct to be the best channel and beat the OTAs.
Sam, I've been with Hotelchamp for almost 6 months now, working as commercial executive, specializing with the e-commerce product.
And my name is Soledad. Hello again. I have been working at Hotelchamp for a few months now, but I have a hospitality background. I've been working in hotels for over 9 years. And so the reason why you're here is, why is mobile important? Luke, can you help us with that?
Yes, thanks, Soledad. So I have a couple of data points to talk through why mobile is so important. So on the next slide, you can see On the next slide, you can see that since 2017, there has been more traffic on hotel websites via mobile than on desktop. So already for quite a while, it's been the main way that people actually experience hotel sites. What we do see is conversion rate on mobile websites tends to be lower, quite a bit lower. And that means that we see just over 1/3 of bookings are made on mobile. And so what we're seeing is it's a really important part of the conversion journey. People often go to the hotel website on mobile first. They use it to get information, learn more about the hotel before later on making a purchase on desktop. But what we're seeing is actually a lot more people these days, especially compared to the past, are actually booking now on mobile. We also see from a kind of research from Google that the most common activity on Google is looking for discounts and offers. And when we did a data analysis of when people are actually using desktop versus when people are using mobile, we actually found that while mobile is consistently used throughout the week, so here you can see the blue is mobile usage, green is desktop. We see that mobile is consistent through the week, whereas desktop is heavily concentrated on the work days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we also, when we kind of looked a bit closer and we looked at what time of day people use the devices, we actually saw that during the day when people are at work, when they're with their desktop computer, the desktop use is very high. But in the evening and also in the morning, I should say in the early morning, mobile use skyrockets. Likewise, during the weekend, it stays pretty steady as well. Whereas people are using it often when they're at home watching TV or out and about. So we have on the next slide a data point on the context of mobile. So 82% of mobile visits are users actually browsing on their phone at home, 8% during work. But despite this, there is in general 74% were in a rushed mindset, according to this research by Google and Awards. And 26% were in a relaxed mindset. And this is often because they're doing multiple things at the same time, often, for example, watching TV or using social media. And so they're very distracted and not very focused as well. So it's a completely different context to desktop. We also see that hoteliers tend to overlook mobile. And we believe this is because hoteliers tend to check their own website during work hours. They work on a desktop device, and so they never actually experience or very rarely look at their website on their phone. And that often means that they pay less attention to some of the things or the details of the experience on mobile, even though this is where most of their visitors are actually, or how most of their visitors are actually experiencing their website. So we see that mobile tends to be overlooked, especially in comparison to desktop. And also OTAs are focusing heavily on mobile. So here on the right is actually a data point from the recent quarterly earnings calls from Booking.com. And this is the percent of room nights booked through Booking.com's app as a percent of their total bookings or total room nights. And you can see in 2019, 36% came through the app, and it's increased to 2022 Q2 to 40%, which is actually a substantial amount. And you can see here on the left, there's a quote from Glenn Fogel, the Chief Executive Officer of Booking.com, where he's saying basically that one of their key planks of strategy is to drive people through the mobile app. For them, it's extremely important because it means that they don't have to pay Google each time for someone to come to Booking.com because they're organically coming through the app. It also means when they're in the app, they're less likely to be looking at other websites, but they're more likely to actually stay within the app. And this has resulted in quite heavy focus on getting hotels to offer mobile-only discounts, which they tend to only do on their own. The hotels don't seem to match this on their direct channel, which is causing quite a bit of a problem as well. And you can see on the next slide that this is a screenshot from Expedia, and you can see just when you land on their site, the amount of focus that goes on to getting you to actually download the app. So increasingly mobile is an area where hotels are losing out against the OTAs. And actually you can see here, when you factor in not just the commissions and not just, for example, things like preferred fee and even things like the Genius discount, but when you also factor in on top the mobile only discount, the amount of revenue left for hotels is substantially reduced. So it makes a lot of sense to compete for these mobile bookers, because otherwise the hotel loses not only revenue, but also has to pay a commission and forms of advertising fees.
Thank you for that, Luke. I must say that in the last years that I worked in a hotel, I had their website open on desktop every single day, but I think twice I opened their mobile one to check if it was okay. And on that note, do you have any tip for any hotelier here that would like to check if their mobile website is adequate?
Yeah, so there are a couple of tools which I would recommend every hotelier to familiarize themselves with, especially in relation to mobile. So one is actually Google has basically a tool which allows you to measure the page speed on mobile. It's very important because on mobile especially, having a slower page speed actually has a much bigger effect on the conversion rate, because people are actually, going back to what I said earlier, people are rushed and less patient. So if things are taking a bit longer to load, then they are likely to leave. But also actually using tools like Google Analytics, you can segment your traffic by different devices. So you can basically see all of your metrics, page views, bounce rate by device type, and see the difference. And I would recommend every hotel to do that because it's really fascinating. And another one is actually Hotjar. Hotjar have a heat map tool, which allows you, and also a click map tool, so you can actually see how far people are scrolling. As Sam will get onto later on, people behave very differently on mobile devices simply because the amount of screen space is smaller. So that offers really fascinating insights. And I think we have an example of some of those insights to come as well.
Thank you. Just as the way we organize the webinar is, we're going to have 5 problems that we think that are the most seen ones in mobile websites. And of course, we're going to offer some tricks on how to tackle this. If you dive into the first problem, that sites are designed with desktop in mind, and then they're translated into mobile. Sam, how does this affect then the website, or how does it look then?
So I think you need to go back to the building blocks of when the website was built in the first place. The designer or the developer would have done this on a desktop website. They would have made it look fantastic on the desktop. And when they hit the magic button, which then optimizes it to look good on a mobile phone as well, I'm not disagreeing that it still looks good. You have the grids, the flex boxes, the fonts, the widgets, everything's converted, so it looks good on a smaller screen. However, the issue here is that if you have, let's say, your home landing page is 4 pages long and you squeeze all of that content into a small screen, you're going to be scrolling for ages to find the content that you want, which obviously makes for a bad user experience. And there's a good chance that the user will bounce quite quickly. So as you can see on this slide here, only 22% of visitors will not go past the first section of the web page, and One of the most important parts of this specific web page is the offers section, but only 45% of the viewers actually made it this far. So this sort of begs the question of what can be done about that. And the whole point is to optimize the space that is seen most often, which is, of course, the above the fold. As you probably guessed, above the fold means the first part you see on the website. A great example where this is utilized really well is with companies like Booking.com or Airbnb. With Booking.com, you can see they have the form for the user to fill in, which is the most important part of it. Same with Airbnb, where they have property type, property details, and location. Another thing you can do, if you go to the next slide, please, Soleil, is making use of the horizontal widgets. These are essentially widgets that slide across, which stops the viewer from having to go up and down to find what they're looking for. It's a great tool for elements which share similar properties. So, for example, things like room types, USPs, or special offers.
Yeah, and so problem 2, simply because on desktop you have your navigation items typically at the top, and they're very easy to see, and they're very visible, so you're often very likely to actually go through the navigation at the top. On mobile, it's not the case because the navigation is hidden behind what is known as a hamburger menu, these 3 lines. And so you can actually see on the next slide, we did some click tracking, and we saw only 15% of people actually click on the hamburger menu. And that means often people will stay on the homepage. This is really important because it means having a really persuasive homepage is vital, because people are not going on the other pages as much. And that means the homepage should actually almost like a sales page. It should have all of the content needed to convert the visitor. It should have all the USPs, all of the key pieces of information, and value points. Other tips you can do is you can have, for example, these kind of quick links at the top of the page. So, for example, you can have different segments in your hotel. So people looking, for example, at the meetings or the food and beverage pages. So you can use quick links at the top to actually highlight these and allow people to navigate to them quickly.
Cool. I know Luke touched on this earlier, but obviously page speed is a massive issue, and it's again often overlooked. There is piles and piles of data and resources available out there, a lot that's been provided by Google themselves, so it's not to be ignored. I think that the headline here, again, to reiterate what Luke was saying, is that for every second delay in mobile page load, conversions can fall by up to 20%, which, as I'm sure you can agree, is quite an alarming rate, especially when we start going into multiples of 2s and 3s. The load speed is of course connected to the page weight as well, so how much data is there. Studies have shown that more elements on the page, the lower the chances of conversion. And here you can also see how it influences the bounce rate. Obviously, from 1 second to 3 seconds, the probability of bounce rate goes to 32%. But then when you're near 10 seconds, you're looking at 23% bounce rate, which isn't great. Also, to add insult to injury to this problem, Google will in fact penalize your ranking on the search engine if your load speed is too slow. So, in a nutshell, faster is better and less is more. If you go to the next slide, please, sorry. One of the things you can do here is to reduce the page weight bytes. The biggest culprit here, as you can probably guess, is the images. Images do take up a lot of data. So the solution here is to optimizing images through either resizing or compression. This will reduce the number of bytes and improve image quality on smaller screens. Of course, you don't necessarily want to take away having high definition images from the user. So an alternative here is to provide an external window which the user can go into to see the image full screen. And the same applies to videos. Of course, you don't want to wait around for a video to load to watch it, so just provide a play button instead, so it prompts the load when you need it. Another one is fonts. They're quite byte heavy as well, especially with their custom fonts. So we always try and suggest to stick to a maximum of 2 fonts. And finally, if the website is designed in the old-fashioned way, minification is also an option. And this is essentially the practice of removing unnecessary or redundant code and using shorter variable and function names.
Great. And so problem 4, when copying and pasting a desktop design to mobile, this can actually harm SEO. In particular, using pop-ups on the landing page has a damaging effect on SEO scores. So Google penalizes websites where there is a large mobile pop-up. There are ways around this. So the way we often do at Hotelchamp is actually triggering the pop-up on the second page view, so not on the landing page. But you can also use smaller pop-ups. So for example, notifications or smaller style sticky messaging, which does not get penalized by Google.
Great, and this takes us to the last problem, which is on general usability. As Luke mentioned before earlier, mobile users are generally in a rushed state of mind. Their ultimate goal is to complete the task as soon as possible. They don't want any tricky navigation, and quite understandably, they don't want something to happen that wasn't necessarily their intention. So a big one is touchscreen targets and sticky buttons. On desktop, you have pinpoint accuracy with a mouse pointer, but of course, on mobile, that's not necessarily the case. The optimum target for a button is between 7 and 10 mil, which allows for ample space for the font. It's also good practice to make use of the sticky call to action buttons because they're obviously always available and always available in the thumb zone, which I'll touch on in a second. We also have with one of our new features, this can be combined with some social proof and direct booking benefits to really cement the intended output. Here we have the thumb zone, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but this is where the thumb is the happiest. It means that the thumb doesn't need to stretch to get to a certain point, and it means that for those phone users who are busy doing other things like cooking or shopping, they don't need to put down their spatula or their bag to stop what they're doing to complete a task. In the next slide, we'll see that animations is a great one as well. There it is. These animations confirm that the user has interacted with their call to actions as they intended, and also, of course, confirms when they have not. And finally, we have typography. Very basic, but extremely important. It's easy for the user to differentiate between titles and text bodies. We also want to make sure the font isn't too small, so there's no squinting required, and using bullet points for an easier read, and even better yet, using icons instead of bullets for an easier navigation.
Thank you to the experts for that. Before we go into the little bonus that we thought of, would you like to share any insight or final takeaway on the subject?
Yeah, so I think my takeaway is that it's super important to check the hotel website quite frequently on mobile. And it can look funny. I think I've been in the office a few times where it looks like I'm on my phone all the time, but actually just checking the website on your phone is a brilliant way to actually experience how your guests are experiencing it, and also really see where the experience is going wrong or where things can be improved. And often that will give you some great ideas on how to improve your mobile site without having to, for example, do a complete redesign.
Yeah, I totally agree, Luke. I think also we talk about when a website is designed in the first place, there's always this sort of, it's weighted heavily towards desktop because that's what we inherently think comes first. But if anything, I believe that the mobile website should be designed before the desktop website.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's kind of, we're suggesting a change in mindset. And the little bonus that we have thought of was, if after hearing us and you think, well, I'm not sure if our website is up to par, we can offer a free scan of your website. If you're interested, please share your details in the chat and we'll reach out to you. And thank you so much for joining our webinar. Are there any questions? Okay, then thanks for joining.